Hey everybody, welcome to EU versus China Season 2, day number 3. It's time for the round of 8. My name is Frodan, and I'm joined by Monk on the desk to bring you guys the English commentary for this entire tournament. We've had a pretty fun round of 16, but now we start getting more serious. Monk, how are you enjoying the first 2 days so far?
Yeah, the first 2 days brought us a lot of great games, especially day 2. We had pretty much all 3 twos. Everything was really close, and in the end, it was 4 Chinese players and 4 European players who prevailed into the round of 8. And what that gives us is 1 European versus European match, 1 China versus Chinese match, and 1 match between a European and a Chinese player. So probably the most exciting outcome possible.
Yeah, there's a pretty strong likelihood there's some upsets as well. There's an off chance that it might be Europe versus Europe or China versus China, but most likely we'll be able to see who comes out on top in the finals. And remember, guys, that they're playing not only for $60,000, but also for the Ferrari that you saw just about 15 seconds ago, or in case you forgot,
If all the Chinese players are eliminated in this tournament, they'll actually drive the Ferrari off stage into the distance. So
well, I find it hard that they'll be able to get through the door that easily. Unless they plan to bust through Kool-Aid Man style, where they just go through the walls.
yeah, I'm actually looking around.
I'd be down to see that.
I'm actually looking around, and I'm not even sure how they got the Ferrari in here.
I'm pretty sure the CEO had airlifted through the ceiling. That's the strongest likelihood. Yeah, that's probably it. Yeah, it'd be really cool to see them win the Ferrari. I just kind of want to see the reaction because I don't even think they'd care. A lot of these Chinese players, it seems like the last thing on their mind is winning a car. I think they care more about, the money or what hat they're gonna buy next.
Yeah, and the publicity of it all. I mean, if you win a Ferrari, it's going to be on all the news stations. Wow, a gamer wins a Ferrari. We're actually going to go into some introductions of our first players, and they're going to be the European players Kolento and Stancifka.
That's right.
Probably 2 of the strongest players in the out of the 4 European players left.
That's right. And Kolento and Stancifka, they come in here as players that a lot of people were pegging to maybe be in the finals if you had to pick a European player, but they're going to meet here in the round of 8. And I think it's cool to see Kolento be able to advance, even though he's had high expectations. But Stancifka specifically, people really didn't know what to expect from this guy other than his Magic the Gathering background. Now you see him, he's actually a pretty damn good Hearthstone player as well.
Yeah, Stancifka, going to the tournament, he was definitely in the top 3. Most people regarded him as one of the top 3 European players. Even the Chinese players agree that he was one of the top 3. Now we see Kolento on the screen. Kolento, his favorite classes are Rogue, Druid, and Mage.
Well, Rogue makes sense, considering Kolento he's widely attributed to be the father of Miracle Rogue, of Leroy version, and then course, Hyped and Attack was able to innovate it from there. And then we have Druid. I'm not really sure why Kolento would say Druid is one of his favorite classes. I guess because
it's so consistent.
It's like so consistent, and it's reliable. And then Mage. I mean, Fatigue Mage. Didn't Kolento love Fatigue Mage for a long time?
Yeah, I think these days he loves Freeze Mage and Mech Mage more. But I think One of the reasons you will like Mage is that it's a class that has a lot of different archetypes. You can build Mage in a lot of different ways, and that gives you a lot of maneuverability and just you can build Mage to your own way, to your own style.
Yeah, Kolento is of course worshipped by many Europeans and Chinese players. And, you know, he's worshipped all around the world. Let's be real. He comes in here as the big favorite. In fact, some people were taking pictures with Kolento this morning. Not really with this guy, Stancifka. He's a Magic the Gathering player, currently living in a pro house, right? For
Yeah,
MTG.
Magic. He's living in a Magic the Gathering pro gaming house.
Right.
Really exciting. I talked to him this morning and I asked him, hey, you weren't here at the venue yesterday when everyone else was playing. What were you doing? And his response was, oh, I went to get some breakfast and then I practiced Hearthstone for 13 hours. At the end of the 13 hours, I realized I hadn't eaten, so I went to sleep. And that was his day.
That sounds like me, but it was more like instead of playing Hearthstone for 13 hours, we casted for 13 hours, and then I went to sleep. I went to sleep very hungry, Monk.
I'm sorry. Yeah, yesterday,
Very hungry.
all the games were, all the matches ended at in 3-2, so we pretty much had the longest broadcast possible. The full 20 games.
Maybe today will be very much the same thing. I'm expecting some good Hearthstone. The players that advanced through, I feel like they're the ones who played better overall. You can make a case that some players were even with some of their opponents, and then as a result, they just happened to draw a little bit better. But overall, I think the round of 8 doesn't surprise me in the slightest when looking at the matchups. We're going to start off with Hunter versus Druid. We didn't see Stancifka playing Hunter last time. And the reason for this is that you're allowed to change deck lists between rounds.
Yeah, after the round of 16, after the round of 8, you are allowed to change deck lists. You will have to play the same decks in the round of 4 and in the finals, but yeah, we can see Face Hunter from
Here we go.
Stancifka. Unfortunately, the names are slightly swapped, and it's actually going to be Stancifka playing the Hunter, and Kolento will be playing the Druid. Yeah, I was talking to Stancifka and some of the other European players, and I think most of them agree that Face Hunter is the stronger version of Hunter. Meanwhile, we have the Chinese players, pretty much all of them brought mid-range Hunter, so kind of a discrepancy between the two regions.
Yeah, Face Hunter is still extremely powerful, as we've seen. In fact, Face Hunter had a much higher win rate than the mid-range Hunter. And even the mid-range Hunter was still in a position to be aggressive, but they weren't. And as a result, they lost a few games that felt like they shouldn't have because they were playing too control-oriented.
Yeah, for example, in one of the games yesterday between Magic Wind and Tice, Magic Wind had a pretty bad start, and Tice had Kazan Mystic into Harrison Jones, but with just like really top-heavy cards like Ragnaros that went to face, and of course Dr. Boom, he actually was able to defeat Tice by just being very aggressive overall.
All right, so we saw that the Hunter had things like Worgen Infiltrator, so he does have an early drop. But we also know that Stancifka really likes to take his time on turns. In fact, I feel like I haven't seen a game where Stancifka hasn't roped on turn 1 yet.
Yeah, that's true. Very reminiscent of Life Coach, and he reminds me of Life Coach in a lot of ways. Not only just the roping, but his facial expressions and where he places his hands on his forehead. Not only that, they're very heavy thinkers, and they're very good at a lot of games. Life Coach, of course, was a professional poker player. Stancifka is a professional poker player, and he also is he was also his national champion of chess. Yep.
I feel like he actually waited for the rope just to mess with his opponent. Those kinds of mental things, I mean, they piss your opponents off sometimes, right?
That's true, but I don't feel like Kolento is the type of player who would get pissed off by something like this. He's very calm and collected. For example, in the first match, in the first game of the first match that Kolento played, a boom bot, it took a 1 out of 7 hit, went to Kolento's face, did 4 damage, and then his opponent lethaled him, exactly lethal because of that, and Kolento didn't even flinch. It's always tougher.
Well, I mean, I feel like Kolento has turned off the Amaz gland in his brain. Like, I don't think he's capable of reacting as sharp as some other people are. You know, just by sheer, like, I've watched Kolento stream for a long time, and I have yet to see him flail one arm, let alone both.
Yep. I mean, maybe if you combine Kolento and Amaz, you'll get maybe a normal Hearthstone player.
We'll probably get the richest Hearthstone player in history if you just combine Amaz's earning power with Kolento's winning power.
true. Someone should get on that. Some evil scientists.
Well, Stancifka has the Worgen still alive. I mean, he's really thinking his turn's over, but I think the Face Hunter here is okay to just at least utilize its hero power to some capacity. I think you're building the board slightly still.
Yeah, Stancifka looks so stressed when he plays, and
Yeah.
wow. You know, we talked about how Stancifka had a lot in common with Life Coach, but he also has a lot in common with another very good player, Firebat, because he keeps very meticulous stats of all the matchups. I heard when his piece of paper was taken from him on the first day because you can't record stats or you can't record cards for this tournament. It actually had a lot of like winning, like matchup win rates and just overall very well researched from Stancifka. I was also talking to Stancifka this morning, and he told me that he was expecting Kolento to play Rogue, so his lineup was kind of geared against Rogue.
All right, well, Stancifka acknowledging that, yep, the Keeper of the Grove coming in there. Pretty expected. It was either that, Pilot Shredder, or, you know, in worst case scenario, it's Swipe, but you want to have the Swipe available for when things like the Unleash the Hounds come out, and you need to kill off all the straggling 1-health minions.
Yeah. Some, wow. So, a Face Hunter did not go face that turn. Interesting.
That's right, he traded on the board. It's a really easy trade to make if, you know, you're worried about that
Swipe.
But, you know, of course, we know that the Druid does have it, so it's the right move here.
Yeah, I want to talk about Stancifka's hand right now. It has 2 Iron Beak Owls, and they're usually good, but they're very situational. At the Gfinity tournament, the one that Firebat won, Firebat also brought a Face Hunter deck because he thought it was just best overall over the entire field. But in his deck, he actually had 0 silences, no Iron Beak Owls. So just a very different way of building the deck, either way.
There's no really reason to play an Abusive Sergeant on the board ever if you don't... I mean, unless you feel like you need as much minions to stick on the board. Just because the 2 damage gets in either way, whether or not you're trading it immediately or you're trading it in the future by using its Battle Cry.
Of course.
So, Stancifka passes.
This looks to be an Azure Drake turn. But
It does.
I also wouldn't be too surprised if a Hero Power plus BGH comes down.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting because the Big Game Hunter would have like similar, or the Azure Drake would have similar stats, assuming it traded in anyways. It'd be a 4-2 to the Abusive Sergeant, but that card draw is so valuable.
Yeah, see, it gets him a little closer to cards like Ancient of Lore. Also, the Big Game Hunter would be fairly weak to Explosive Trap. And
Or
Glaive
Glaive
Zuka.
Zuka.
Exactly.
Look at that.
Is there going to be another trade here? Let's see.
Possibly. I mean, it's also a lot of damage to be missing out. 7 damage, or sorry, 5 damage you'd be missing out on.
Exactly, yeah, I think this is definitely correct.
Ooh, there is this Force of Nature. So if he picks up an Innervate next turn, Kolento wins.
Yep.
There's just that 2 in 22 chance. Is that? I feel like that's how many cards he's drawn by now.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Stancifka, in the meantime, can he pair together Burst to end the game?
That's a bad draw.
Unleash the Hounds.
So, unfortunately, 4 very situational cards.
Right, and then we're coming up on the case where Kolento might realistically be able to heal himself, and Stancifka has to start calculating damage of like how much he can get away with, and of course he's also taking damage every turn with this Azure Drake now that he didn't trade.
What Stancifka can do is, I know, actually, yeah, he can set up the Explosive Trap, and I believe that protects him from Force of Nature Savage Warrior combo.
Right. Well, sort of. You know, that's assuming the Drake can't just attack and proc it first, you know. But
yeah, but you're still 1 damage off, I believe.
right. You mean this is? You're absolutely right that he wouldn't play on a combo. It's just like it'd still be able to come off in a way. Like you wouldn't just stop it completely.
Not getting an Iron Beak Owl on the board. I don't think he cares too much about the spell power at this point. But just getting something on the board, just forcing his
Oh, that's game over. The Intervey gets drawn.
Wow.
This is why they call him K-God.
There we go. So unfortunately,
Magical draws. Wow.
unfortunately, yeah, no explosive trap was played, and if explosive trap was played, Kolento would have actually been 1 damage off lethal.
Yeah. 1 damage off, but then we knew that there's an alternative as well. Ancient of Lore, and then play it pretty slow, and then obviously have the combo the next turn too. So even if there was a secret, Kolento was sitting in a pretty decent spot.
I think like that game came down to basically the fact that Stancifka, he drew both his silences in his first 4 cards, and he wasn't allowed to play them out. Basically, no taunts were used, and nothing. Basically, the owls were just vanilla 2/1s. Just a lot of deck building involved, and if we talk to Firebat, he would definitely disagree with that decision to bring 2 owls in this deck.
Double owl, yeah. You're right. It could have been anything else. I mean, heck, if it was just I mean, what did he take out, do you think? Did he take out a Haunted Creeper, or did he take out a... I mean, he also... You know, like, did he take out one of the Chargers? That could have been, like, the game-ending damage?
Maybe
I mean,
something like Leroy Jenkins is something that he cut.
I'd be surprised if he cut Leroy, because that's pretty crucial.
Yeah, maybe fewer 2-drops, or rather fewer 1-drops. Like there's Leopard Gnome and Warger Infiltrator and Abusive. Some people play the South Sea Deckhand as well. We saw Patrick, for example, yesterday. He played
Skylink?
Skylink, yeah. He played the South Sea Deckhand.
Call him Patrick. Monk knows him intimately. Well, Kolento's up 1-0. Now, that means his Druid deck is gone. Stancifka can still play that Hunter deck, which is pretty fearsome. Kolento still has Warlock and Rogue remaining.
Yeah.
And if I was Kolento and I knew Hunter was still up, I would definitely not want to queue up Rogue here. So I'd probably go with Warlock.
Yeah, it really depends on what type of Warlock Kolento brings. The Demon Handlock style is getting more popular these days, but I feel like that's going to be slightly weak to face Hunter. Meanwhile, the pure Demon Lock with stuff like Mistress of Pain and Nubian Eggs, I feel like that has a fairly good matchup against face Hunter, especially because sometimes they even run 1 or 2 anti-heal bots.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
And like Mistress of Pain is something you either have to silence or you have to get rid of right away. It's kind of like the Armor Smith of Demon Lock.
Yeah, I don't actually. I think Mistress of Pain is still pretty underrated, but it's starting to climb back. You know, climb into relevance that people have to be worried about it just because of what it can do. And it's not even about like Demon Heart or like Demon Fire, like anything that gives it like the synergy. It's like the Abusive Sergeant, and all of a sudden it's like, wow, it actually got like an extra 5 or 6 health that Warlock got a free 2-3 cards from.
Yeah, there's just even if you don't run Demon Heart, there's just so many cards that can buff up the Mistress of Pain.
Right,
like you
Defender
said,
of Argus.
Defender of Argus, Abusive Sergeant, even Power Overwhelming.
Yep.
Yeah, use that to gain 5 life. That's pretty good. Give a minion 4 attack, 4 health for a turn. Gain back 5 life. It's very good against classes like Face Hunter, against any aggressive class, basically.
Ooh. Well, we have Warlock versus Druid, and Druid gets the wild growth early on, so Stancifka already off to a good start. Now, Kolento, on the other hand, I always love watching Kolento play Handlock because I feel like he's one of the people who can adapt to situations with Handlock, like really, really well. He's a guy that, like for example, for a while, I remember like people first saw him coin out Ancient Watcher on turn 1. People were like, WTF? Like, what are you doing, man? Like, don't you want to tap and like drop Ancient Watcher on turn 3? And like stuff like that where like Kolento was making a lot of innovative moves with Handlock back in the day. And I always enjoy seeing him play this matchup.
I remember a particular game with his Handlock against the Shaman, and he drew his Mountains and Twilight Drakes, but he basically played around Earthshock and Hex for about 9 or 10 turns until he saw the Hexes and Earthshocks come out because the Shaman had nothing else to do. Then he played the Twilights and Mountain
Right, like use Sludge Belcher to try to draw it out, and then
exactly, yeah.
you know, and make it difficult. But let's see how he responds. It's a really nice curve from Stancifka. Wild growth into the Yeti and the Sludge Belcher is pretty much ideal in terms of the 2, 3, 4 turns.
Yeah, Yeti is actually just the normal Chillwind Yeti is a card we haven't seen in competitive Hearthstone in a while. And,
what do you think about this hand from Kolento? Should he go slightly on the aggressive? He has Ancient Watcher and the Ironbeak Owl. And I mean that's hard to deal with. It's like innervating a Yeti right back at Druid.
It's true. Oh, but I think that changes things actually. If
I
he
mean, you still
hadn't-
can tap on turn 3 though, and Drake is reasonable.
Okay, so he still decides to play it. I think if he hadn't drawn the Twilight Drake, it would have been a much easier decision.
Right. The nice thing is that if you tap on turn 3, you're still going to have a 4-5 Drake, so it's kind of like playing a Yeti anyways and challenging the board. And, I mean, if you get 2 Yetis out that quickly... Oh, he's got Dark Bomb and Mortal Coil to control the state of the board, too. It's going to be pretty uncomfortable for Stancifka, actually.
Yeah, he really wants to throw down the Chillwind Yeti here, but he also really wants the hero power at the same time. But he can't do both.
Yeah. Well, that's where, like, Mortal Coil plus tapping is so nasty. And, of course, if he drops Sludge Belcher, like, Dark Bomb plus the Ironbeak Owl is, like, the difference, right? So, it's like you said, Monk. He wants to squeeze in the hero power, but he can't afford to give up the tempo by missing a minion drop.
If Stancifka does decide to chill in Yeti next turn, I might just, you might just actually just Dark Bomb and trade the Owl, because then you think your opponent can fit in the hero power next turn. So I think you just want to get rid of this Owl as fast as possible. You want to, and as Stancifka, you want to kill the Owl as fast as possible. So Stancifka here could actually be just considering hero powering.
By the way, let's just talk about the fact that Stancifka is playing a Yeti, Monk, as opposed to a Pilot Shredder. What is he aiming for?
Well, I guess in this scenario, the Yeti is slightly better, because if he played a Piloted Shredder, then that's interesting. He goes for the tap. Okay, so if he played a Piloted Shredder, then it would have been an easy trade with the Owl plus the Mortal Coil. And wow, look at Kolento's deck. Dark Dread Infernal.
Wow, Dread Infernals.
Void Caller. You know what this is? This is actually a Strife Crow deck. Strife Crow got #1 Legend with this deck earlier this morning, and it might just be not a Strife Crow deck, but rather a Cloud9 deck.
Let's just call it the Strife Crow deck so we can improve our storylines here.
Sure.
Man, look at Cloud9 working together. That team synergy. People are always like, hey, why do teams exist in Hearthstone? It's a 1v1 game, not to mention, you know, it's like RNG fest.
Yep.
That's why. So that way Kolento can take Strife Crow's deck, win with it, and everyone give Kolento credit, when realistically it's probably someone like Ecop, which no one really cares about if he builds a deck, right?
Yeah, I remember back in the day when Strife Crow built the poor Ecop. But yeah, I remember back in the day when Strife Crow built the Echoing Ooze Hunter Creeper Druid deck without Raw Growths. Kolento got it to #1 Legend.
Yeah, and everyone calls it Kolento's deck.
Yeah, exactly. Poor Strife Crow. But again, it might have been Ecop who was behind that. But we can see Stancifka, he threw down a Piloted Shredder as well. So what that tells me is that he still considers Piloted Shredder better than
wow,
Yetis, but
look
he
at
wants to
that.
play more Yetis.
He gets the perfect 1/3 minion to match it, and now there's a 6/6 free off the tempo gained from the Void Caller.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about this card, the Dread Infernal. Most people in Demon Lock, they run Melganus, they run Jiraxis,
And then maybe a Doom Guard.
Yeah, and then as their third card, as their third demon, a Doom Guard. But this, with the Dread Infernal, I feel like, first of all, it does one AoE damage, which is actually very valuable in the metagame right now. Pretty good against Paladins, pretty good against like Shamans, perhaps, maybe good against Unleash the Hounds, Violet Teacher tokens, Implosion tokens as well. Just a lot of tokens, a lot of 1/1 tokens in the metagame. Also, you can just afford to play this as a 6-drop, whereas with Doomguard, you pretty much have to get it off the Void Caller, or you just never play it at all.
He's holding the other cards in your hand hostage, because you need sometimes a Shadow Flame or the Taunt Giver, right? Pretty interesting perspective, and another card that flows under the radar. But if you ask guys like, you know, the Reno players, Crip, Ratsma, you know, ADC, WTA, like all those guys, they think Dread Infernal is like one of the best Warlock cards ever. And you know what's so funny, Monk? I bet if you go back and like ask Stancifka, like, hey, what cards would you like to start off in this game? He'd probably say Wild Growth, Yeti, and Sludge Belcher again. And like, yet, even though he's had the ideal hand, he's in the defensive stance right here, where like Kolento could realistically push in a couple turns to end the game soon.
Yeah, I feel a lot. It has a lot to do with how Handlock / Demon Lock is getting a lot of popularity lately, especially because people have just recently discovered how good Void Caller is. When Void Caller was first introduced, players like Reels first tried it. Of course, Reels now works for Blizzard, but afterwards we discovered there's just not enough good demons in Demon Lock. Right now in GVG, Melganus was released, and I feel like that just kind of put it over the top.
Well, Stancifka, how do you stabilize here. The best. You can like barely clear. No, can you even barely clear? No, you can't actually. Can't actually clear.
Nope. You
That
need
kind of
something.
stinks.
Need something like a Wrath.
Yeah. So then, do you hide behind Sludge Belcher? And then Savage Roar? Oh no, you don't even have enough. Oh no, he uses hero power. Okay. So he chooses to save the Savage Roar here. That's like his only hope that he can survive one more turn, and then combo his opponent down.
And Sylvanas, it's an okay draw, but I don't see lethal here. But Dr. Boom is always nice here.
All right.
This 6/6 body is actually just so annoying. It's like almost the perfect stat distribution. It's just really tough, and it also dodges BGH.
Yeah, Boulder Fist Ogre. Well, almost Boulder Fist Ogre status. So, because Kolento knows about the combo that comes on turn 9, he's going to drop Lotheb, right? Instead of Dr. Boom. Unless he just mysteriously thinks that his opponent doesn't have it.
Yeah, that sounds about right, I would say.
I mean, Kolento's done stuff like that in the past where he knew what type of combo deck his opponent was playing at BlizzCon, and he still didn't play around it at the final turn. And like that was like, if Kolento won that round of 8 game and went to the top 4, you know, realistically, we could have had like Kolento versus Firebat, and then who knows who becomes a world champion from that point on.
I feel like those situations are kind of different. In this scenario, he has to play around Force of Nature Savage Roar. In the scenario you're referring to, he had to play around Raging Worgen,
Right.
plus Death Spite plus Inner Rage, and I feel like those are just not a set of cards that Kolento usually plays around on ladder, and
Charge.
Yeah, and Charge. Oh yeah, and Charge, of course. And because he doesn't usually play around those cards on ladder, he just doesn't have a lot of experience against them. And Kolento seems like the kind of player who his success comes from his experience. He plays more Hearthstone games and more ladder games than pretty much every other player in Hearthstone. Like when you, I have a funny story when he was first in the Mana Grind team, his first Hearthstone team. A lot of his teammates asked him, "Hey, Kolento, how much Hearthstone do you play a day?" And his response was, "I can't play that much. I'm still like a professional World of Tanks player, so I can only afford to practice 8 hours a day." True story.
Yeah. Yeah, Kolento's a practice machine. He was very apologetic too. He's like, "Guys, I'm really sorry. Hey, I only can practice like 8 hours a day, but you know, in a couple months, I'm gonna change that so I can, you know, play my regular 12 to 14 hours." And the thing about Kolento too is that a few streamers that are well known for like playing a lot of games, they don't really play much if they stream all day. But Kolento streams like, you know, 6, 7 hours or 8 hours, and then he plays like another 3 to 4 after it's done. Some people, like, as soon as they finish streaming, they're like, "No, I'm done."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Kolento, he does the streaming thing, and then he does his real practice off stream. So what you see on stream is just not even the strongest form of Kolento there is, and that's
Not
pretty
even
scary.
his final form. Wow, Stancifka is 1 card off of lethal. If he was able to have Innervate and use that on swipe, Magic Transformation. Unfortunately, he's looking at potentially dying next turn. Does he have to use combo to clear here?
Is there any other way? Let's see. No, I think he does, just because the Boom Bots and Dr. Boom just do too much damage. I mean, there's already... How much damage is on the board? 11 damage on the board. So if Kolento had 1 point of damage anywhere, or even if he like Shadow Flames his own Boombot, that's still lethal. There's just too many possibilities.
Yeah. I mean, there is the instance where he might draw the second Force of Nature, and if he slips in 2 damage, like say he clears the Sun Fury and the Dr. Boom and hits the face, the opponent still is like within reaching distance, but you're still hoping that 1, Kolento doesn't draw heal, or 2, he doesn't draw taunt, or 3 doesn't kill you. When
still very unlikely.
It seems very unlikely. Oh.
Well, so Stancifka is hoping his opponent doesn't have. That's interesting.
Oh, Kolento's got the damage anyways.
Yeah.
Jiraxis is also the icing on the cake. How do you choose to end this? I think you do it with Jiraxis. You don't Dark Bomb. Don't Dark Bomb, Kolento. Shadow Flame your own Boombot and then Dark Bomb if you want to.
The play is Jiraxis and then emote a couple of times, then hit him. This also, I like the Jiraxis play especially because he just top decked Jiraxis and kind of tilts his opponent off a bit.
I like it too, just because that Jiraxis is a golden Jiraxis, and clearly Hearthstone is pay to win. And I think that reinforces the point. Kolento's up 2-0, and now we go into a scenario where Stancifka has to beat the Rogue deck 3 times. That's going to be pretty tough.
It'll be pretty tough, but I think it's very possible. As I said before, I was talking to Stancifka this morning, and the one class that he predicted Kolento to run was Rogue. So he told me he kind of geared his lineup against Rogue. So I think with all the remaining decks that he has, Druid, Hunter, and Mage, it's very likely for all those classes to defeat Rogue. I think Face Hunter will be favored against Rogue, Druid will be slightly favored against Rogue, and Mage, it's favored or unfavored depending on who you ask.
I'm asking you, Monk.
Well, for me, I'm not one of the best Rogue players in the world, so usually if you're not one of the best Rogue players in the world, you say that Mage is favored. But if you're like Hyped or Super JJ or Risen, they'll say that actually Rogue is favored.
Interesting. So you adopt the philosophy that Mage is favored.
Yeah. Basically, I think at any level besides the top, I think it seems that way that Mage
is this
favored.
not the top level, Monk? You have Kolento, one of the most winning players. In fact, he was voted the player of the year by the fans and his peers. And then he has Stancifka, who's, well, I guess he's definitely a really strong player that's demonstrated in the round of 16. Is this not the top level, Monk?
I guess you're right. But first, we'll have to see Hunter versus Rogue, and it might just end right here. We might not even get to see the Rogue versus Mage match.
Yeah, but this matchup is tough.
Exactly. It's tough, especially because Stancifka has the coin, so Kolento won't be able to do any SI agent shenanigans unless he gets backstabbed in the first 2 cards. And wow, look at that hand. It's just so amazing.
Yep. We got a lot of 1-drops. Now, of course, you know, there's Fan of Knives and other ways that Rogue can really punish the triple 1-drops essentially over the course of turns. Now Stancifka, you know, readjusting, getting himself pretty comfortable. Probably has ordered some tea, so that way he can sit down and really think this over. I think he's taking the studying for my MCATs pose in Starbucks. So that's the pose I commonly see.
Or perhaps it's just the life coach pose. He's not doing it now, but we commonly see him with his hands on his forehead. Just
the thing about life coach is, like, whenever he's staring, like whenever he's roping on a turn, he's staring like so intently, like he's trying to hack a system, like he's Hugh Jackman in Swordfish.
Yeah, like.
And I'm pretty sure he goes home to a wife equally as attractive as Halle Berry, by the way.
Like, yeah, he like stares at the screen and just forces the cards to do what he pleases.
Yeah.
He can control the world.
There we go.
So
rope. I think I'm not even exaggerating at this point. I think every game I've ever seen of Stancifka, or casted rather, he ropes on turn 1.
At this point, sounds pretty accurate. I think all the games today, he's roped, and all the games on the first day he's roped. So, I would say out of 6 games we've seen of him, we've pretty.
He always plays turn 2 so fast. Okay, so I think at this point he's just planning out the first few turns on turn 1, and then like he just goes quickly from that point on. He's definitely not life coach. He's inspired by life coach.
I see. So he also has to consider whether to attack at this point. I think his reasoning is that if he attacks, then the Blood Mage will die, and then he can afford to play the Wolf Rider next turn. But he can also just attack into the Thanos next turn and ensure that this Thanos might not be up next turn. You really want to develop the 3/3 Earthring Farseer,
Right.
but you also want the heal effect.
Want to heal? It just gets blown by the bow anyways. So I agree. Passing.
These preparations, they're either going to be really good or really bad. If he draws some cells, he'll get a lot of tempo advantage. but as of right now, they're just pretty much dead cards.
Well, Stancifka gets tracking. Now that's a card that's always in and out of Hunter. You know, of course, people by now have learned how effective tracking can be. But specifically in this Face Hunter deck, I like having a tracking just because it searches out the final answer that you need sometimes.
If you run a tracking, I would also suspect that you also run Leroy Jenkins, because that just feels like a card that you want to track for. Okay, there's one spell from Kolento, but are we going to see a fan? No, it's a sprint.
Ooh, sprint. It's not too bad. But does he have time to play sprint? I mean, he could play it right now.
If he plays it now and draws a Fan of Knives, he could actually prep the Fan of Knives.
Prep the fan. Second sprint.
Oh,
Blade Flurry. Is it
good.
clear? Wow. And that's going to relieve him of so much pressure. Kolento's at 26 health going in turn 5. Or turn 4 for Stancifka with turn 5. And that's such a good spot because normally by turn 5, turn 6, you're like low teens worrying about kill command.
Yeah, we said that those two preps could turn out really good or really badly, and they turn out really well.
Yep.
Now with a full hand, pretty much anything Kolento wants to do, he can. Meanwhile, Stancifka, again, yeah, like you said, his opponent is at 26, and you're playing Face Hunter, so it's definitely not what you want. The Time Rewinder here could...
Time Rewinder is pretty nasty. Later. It's somewhat like a Shadow Step in a way. It costs a little bit more mana, of course, across the board, but it's like you get another opportunity to play the Charger.
Yeah, or you get another opportunity to play the Abusive Sergeant, so it's kind of like if you use it that way, it's 2 mana for 2 damage, which in Face Hunter is not too bad of a deal.
Sure. I mean, with so many charges in the deck, though, I feel like you can keep that tucked in your back pocket. All right, tracking. We don't know what is available to him, but pick the one that does damage, Stancifka.
Pick the one that does the most damage. Okay.
Leper Gnome.
Okay, that's alright too, because with the Leper Gnome, he can fit in a hero power, and you just generally want to fit in as many hero powers as you can.
Lothab isn't bad, considering that there's like things that can shut down kill command, but is it the right time to play Lothab versus establishing a little bit board?
You also probably want to get rid of this Leper Gnome. But okay.
Yeah, I think next turn he wants to go double 3-drop. Or maybe even have an opportunity to play Violet Teacher. But this turn is like awkward just mana-wise. Like next turn opens up a lot of possibilities with combining the mana costs, but I think Lothab this turn is fine.
So this is really interesting. Clockwork Gnome. I have actually never seen Clockwork Gnome being run in
well,
Face
that's the
Hunter.
second Clockwork Gnome.
Yeah, exactly. So he runs 2 Clockwork Gnomes, and at least 1 Worgen Infiltrator, and Leper Gnomes, and Abusive Sergeants. His deck is really, it curves really low, so Leroy might not be in this deck.
Right, it could realistically be topping out at Wolf Rider and Arcane Golem, and, you know, Kill Command and Animal Companions.
Get in there and fight, maggot!
Even more damage, fitting in even more hero powers. Backstab.
Backstab is pretty decent. It's a board clear, effectively. He's going to attack face, though, just to get the trap out of the way. Or does he feel like racing? We'll see. I think double 3-drop here is pretty effective, considering that you get to put the maximum damage on the board. And the backstab is nice just to stabilize the board power so that he doesn't get too effective trades.
Yeah, I think at this point, Kolento can't even afford to race. Rogue is a class that usually races fairly well. Eviscerate is very effective. Taker Sharp Sword is also very effective. So those cards, even though Kolento doesn't have them now, they have to be in Stancifka's mind. And that might even force him to play a bit more defensively, more than he would like.
Is he thinking about how to kill his opponent the next turn somehow? 5, 8, 12 from the Eviscerate. Yeah, okay, as I said. I mean, I think it's worth hesitating just to see if where you should allocate the kill, but definitely killing the Booster Sergeant is the best choice here, just because you don't want to give the Clockwork Gnome the spare parts, right? So you should backstab the Leopard Gnome.
Yeah.
Let him make the trade if he needs the card.
Yeah, I think Kolento knows that the Leopard Gnome will probably die eventually. Stancifka will eventually make that trade. But
Ooh. I feel like that's a pretty important draw to get the Glavezuka. Because now I think Stancifka is actually sort of worried about dying. There's 11 damage reps on the board, and it's not difficult for Rogue to just piece together 7 damage. It's as simple as Deadly Poison Eviscerate.
What's really annoying here is actually that everything that Kolento has on the board right now is at 3 HP, and you really want them to be at 2 HP. Something like an Unleash the Hounds would be a pretty good draw.
Yeah. That's what I was saying, like, does he trade this into the Lotheb?
If you are going for the racing game, you probably would trade the Lotheb.
But do you lose too much damage? Because you're going to Hero Power here, right? And then have the Explosive Trap. So that's 4. And you can do 5. You put him down to 10. Next turn you'll swing and Hero Power, so that's 4. And then 2 Wolf Riders. 2 Wolf Riders will be 6 damage, so he does have lethal next turn if he attacks the face here. Wow. Oh, no, he doesn't have enough mana to do everything next turn, though.
Ooh. Backstab is another good draw.
Yeah, Backstab's not bad.
Okay, so right now, Stancifka has 4, 5, 6 guaranteed damage on the board. So Leroy would be lethal.
He also has to make sure not to build too many minions for Unleash the Hounds.
So Leroy, Arcane Golem would be lethal. And if 4 minions on the board, that's also lethal.
What do you think about just like backstab and sprinting? That way, so you might be able to draw into health. Oh, Stancifka is pissed. Look at that face. Because if you just wait, so that way you don't do extra damage to yourself, you might be able to pick up some. Okay, so he's gonna not attack. Oh, he is gonna attack. It's like I don't want to give him the damage for him, but
That's interesting.
does he trade in to avoid Unleash the Hounds? He's got 2 for. Yeah, I guess he might die to Unleash the Hounds.
Yeah, actually, yeah. If Unleash the Hounds is drawn, it's still lethal with 3 minions on the board because they didn't a Wolf Rider as well.
So right now, Stancifka is basically just gonna win off the Wolf Rider and the Time Rewinder. No, he's got Wolf Rider Time Rewinder and stuff.
Yeah, that's right.
He had lethal for a while. It's all about like Kolento. Could he have drawn into like some kind of defensive maneuver? But looks like that's gonna be it for game number 3.
And Stancifka at least is on the board.
Like that was a game that Rogue doesn't win very often. So the fact that it was that close was very nerve-wracking for Stancifka, especially since it's on an elimination game.
Yeah, and we know his deck runs things like 2 Iron Beak Owls, so if he had drawn into any of those would have essentially been dead cards. Oh, they have Gatorade in China. Who knew? So the remaining 2 decks for Stancifka are Druid and Mage. And we talked about how Druid... I asked a lot of the European players here. They think that Druid is slightly favored against Rogue. And if Stancifka indeed expected Kolento to bring Rogue, then he might bring tech cards like Harrison Jones and Spectral Knight into Druid, just so to counter the Rogue. Also, we can maybe even expect a lot of tech cards in his Mage to counter Rogue. If it's something like a Mech Mage, then perhaps something like Lotheb. Lotheb is a common card in Mech Mage, but not 100% of people use it. Also, if Stancifka brought something like Freeze Mage to counter to play against the Rogue, that would also be a fairly good matchup for the Freeze Mage.
Yeah. Yep. Probably going with Mage is okay here, and then it comes down to the Rogue versus Druid. And we go to game 5, Monk, of course. But Kolento can also just close it out right here. Rogue, off the good draws, can stop Mech Mage for sure. MVP cards will be Blade Flurry.
And whoa, okay, so this is going to be
Tempo Mage.
Tempo Mage, yeah. So a lot of people call this Tempo Mage. Some people call it Mid-Range Mage. But it's a deck that a lot of... Whoa, 2 Karantor Mages. I've never seen that in Tempo Mage. But also Water Elemental is an interesting one. But We'll get to that later. So Tempo Mage is a deck that has been recently invented by I believe a bunch of Russian players, or at least Russia is where it's most popular. A bunch of players got ranked 3 and 4 on around 3 and 4 on the EU ladder with it. And there's just so many variations, but basically it involves a lot of secrets, a counterspell, perhaps duplicate, and just a really good all-around curving out really well. I'm not sure. I think this mage, though, from what I've heard from players, is actually unfavored against mage, or sorry, against rogue, because it runs cards like, what's the 3/2 called? The Sorcerer's Apprentice. Yeah.
Why is that unfavored? Because of Sorcerer's Apprentice?
Because like just backstab and SI Agent are just pretty terrible against it.
Oh, fair enough. Yeah, I feel like Rogue could easily maneuver around things like
counterspell as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, looks like you're reading my mind, Monk. Can you finish my next sentence? I think Stancifka is
very sandwiches.
It's very what?
Sandwiches.
It's very sandwiches?
Yeah.
Did you a word?
Yes. So it's a Frozen joke.
Oh.
Did you watch
no,
and enjoy that movie?
I did not watch Frozen.
Are you serious?
Yes.
How can you not watch Frozen?
Well, you know, Monk, I was busy like playing Hearthstone and stuff because that's where my true passion is.
All right, we're gonna
not Disney movies.
We're gonna get some Frozen tonight. Watch that movie. You'll be in love.
I'll go watch Frozen if Screenager is there too.
Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. Not enough for you, Frodan?
I mean, I could tell you the answer to that, but I don't think you'd be happy.
Oh, I see you're a man of very complicated tastes. Oh, I can just imagine chat right now.
Yeah.
This water elemental is really annoying. So usually in this type of tempo mage, you run either Pilot Shredder or water elemental, but we can see from Stancifka's druid game that he just prefers a lot of 4-drops. So in his druid deck, he actually ran both Pilot Shredder and Whirlwind Yeti. I've actually talked to a lot of players, including Hyped, and they say that the 4-drop is the most important slot these days in Hearthstone. So it makes sense to just add a lot of 4-drop minions into your deck just for more consistency. This water elemental is actually really good against Rogue, much better than the Piloted Shredder. The HP and the freezing effect just matter so much. Harrison Jones.
Oh, so Harrison's a pretty effective card.
So yeah, this deck is definitely teched against Rogue. It has both Harrison Jones and Lotheb, but unfortunately Stancifka is just not getting his draws. I mean, 2 Kirin mages and no secrets in your hand.
It's pretty unfortunate.
Yeah.
But I mean, he puts it in his deck for a reason. So like, that's the funny thing too. So many times people are like, well, you know, he doesn't have the 2 cards in tandem, but that's also part of the drawback of having Kirin mages, where you might just have a 4/3 minion for 3, and you get punished for not having the secret combos.
That being said, Stancifka does have a comeback mechanic in Flame Strike. If he gets the turn 7 and there's a good Flame Strikeable board, then we could see things turning around, especially if Kolento doesn't draw into things like Sprint and Attribute. Flame Strike is also one of those cards that is either included or not included in this deck. A lot of people have been debating over it. Kaldi is a player, for example, who plays this deck a lot and likes the Flame Strike. But I've talked to also players like Nyria who do not like the Flame Strike and go for more tempo-ish plays instead of value plays. Yeah, there's just a lot of ways to build this deck. Again, Kaldi, he likes duplicate. That goes for more value. It's better against control. Nyria, I've talked to, he likes counterspell instead of duplicate, and he doesn't like the Flame Strike. So just that deck tempo rather than value.
Monk name dropping like crazy, man. Monk talks to everybody in Hearthstone.
Oh.
Literally everybody.
I'm lonely sometimes, Rodan.
Don't worry, you can watch Frozen with all your buddies. Maz and Trump, right? Didn't they sing the duet?
That's true. That's true. Why wasn't I
You
invited?
felt so left out, didn't you?
Exactly.
You watched that video and like, why am I not a popular Asian streamer on Twitch too? Then I can sing Frozen with these guys.
I think I've
So I'll be a caster.
I've actually, to be honest, I actually think I have sung Frozen with them before. So yeah, now that's out.
Today I learned, Monk. Today I learned.
So that probably feels pretty bad. Kolento's like, where's the secrets?
Oh! Blade Flurry off the top for 6 mana. Man, that is that is heartbreaking, or backbreaking rather, for Stancifka, or both.
Yeah, I mean, these booths are soundproof, but I mean, the scream
I
from
don't know,
the
man.
audience.
That woke everybody up.
Exactly, exactly. So, Unstable Portal here. What can he get?
Dang.
Mogre the
No,
Ogre.
but pretty much. I mean, your guess is good. Maybe Bomb Lobber. Bomb Lobber would have actually been sick.
I mean, if... Yeah, I guess. If you got something that could help him clear this...
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know.
Mana Wraith might as well. It's like as good as it gets. In terms of like being able to play something on the board. I'm laughing just because there's really nothing you can do here. Oh wow, that Mana Wraith is actually really annoying. You would have been able to play the Tinker Sharpsword Oil combo pretty easily.
Kolento must be thinking, why are you running 2 Kirin Tor mages? And where are your secrets?
Yeah. I mean, Stancifka tried to make an interesting tech choice, but it looks like he's somewhat mentally defeated already at this stage.
You can go for the board clear right here with weapon, fan, SI, I guess.
Yeah.
And then just go for face. But
So
okay,
he is
this
going to go
works
for the
too.
combo then. Yep. Oh, never mind.
Okay, developing more of the
Yeah.
board.
Put out the Pilot Shredder. I guess he's just taking a really safe approach.
Yeah, slightly
Fair
weaker
enough.
the Flame Strike though. And this might turn into a top deck wars.
Depends what comes out of that Pilot Shredder, right?
Of course.
But then whatever comes out will be able to use the Sharpsword Oil. Unless it's like...
Imagine if Low Arcachoke
The,
comes out. No, it's a Murloc.
Oh.
It's Billy.
Wow, that's kind of like another South Sea deckhand.
But yeah, like, imagine if Laura Arcachoke came out. How insane would this game be? Both of these classes are.
Well, I
classes
don't think
that depend on
Sharpsword Oil
spells.
would help too much.
That's
It's just like
true.
another 3 hit. I guess it's just like a really expensive version of Cold Blood.
It's actually really relevant that this minion is a 2/1, and specifically that it has 1 health.
Well, yeah, the Mage Hero power is
Yeah,
pretty clutch.
exactly. I think if this had anything but 1 health, Kolento would be very tempted to go for the Tinker Sharpsword Oil here.
Mm-hmm. Fireball, pretty useful.
That's a good one. So Harrison Jones, Fireball, pretty good.
You don't want to kill off the 2/1 on the off chance of Sharpsword Oil? Blade Flurry again?
That's pretty
Because that
fair,
would
too.
be 3 plus 6, that's 9. Plus another 4 would be 13.
Whoa!
Wow! He's got a Nixia! But, you know, Kolento does have Fan of Knives.
Yeah, I still think you just go for this play instead, but wow.
That is so... Oh, man, Kolento's going to use his Fan of Knives on an empty board. Oh, dude.
Prep. Oh,
Oh,
man.
man.
No! Kolento!
Dude, this game
Oh.
just got crazy.
Wow, those unstable portals. I mean, the first one was below average, but you know when
Yeah.
Reynad, when GVG first came out, Reynad said, you know what, unstable portal wins you like 10% of games, and maybe this is that 10%. Kolento basically needs his final AOE, his Blade Flurry. Although
Wow.
this might just be a
I'm
turn where
actually
you're
quite
Harrison.
speechless, man.
Oh. Okay, so no Onyxia.
Right.
But still, these are the 2 best cards in the
Oh,
game. The
man.
2 best neutrals in the game.
Like,
against Rogue.
Stancifka just was living off the top of his deck. Azure Drake's pretty good.
Back.
Backstab, too expensive. Kolento's so close to killing his opponent, yet so far.
Oh man, this is one of the best turns ever in Hearthstone. You can Onyxia and Fireball.
Tempo gain from that's pretty nuts. Pretty nuts. I don't know if I don't know if a Blade Flurry can save him here. He needs a little bit more. He needs sprint. Kolento definitely needs sprint here.
Oh man, no reaction at all from Kolento. He's a stone cold killer.
Yeah. Oh, there's a sprint. So we got sprint. That can probably buy him some time.
Sap.
Another prep.
Okay, so how much damage is actually on the board right now? This is pretty insane. 14, 15.
8, 11, 20, 25. 25
Just-
damage on the board.
And yeah, and plus a fireball. Or rather a ping. And then you don't know that
So
your
you got
opponent's fireball.
Onyxia. Onyxia and the Pilot Shredder.
So many options.
Okay. You want to whack the face with the weapon too. You need 2 turns to be able to do it.
Oh man.
So you have to prep Sap.
What's going on here?
Oh, he's going to backstab. So he's going to prep Sap, Onyxia, stay alive, and then attack. Should he backstab the 4-3 just on the off chance it creates a weaker minion or maybe even Doomsayer?
He might be thinking of
Fireball? 10, 15,
possible taunts that might come
17.
out of. Like if a taunt comes out of that Pilot Shredder, it might be really bad.
Stancifka's 1 damage off lethal. Okay, that's not the 1 damage he needs. This game is pretty nuts. And there's going to be 2 chances to draw into like Blade Flurry Eviscerate.
Yeah, either of those would just Eviscerate would be game ending, but Blade Flurry would really wipe this board and pretty much deny all damage. At this point, actually, Blade Flurry isn't that great, to be honest. He's looking.
I mean, it's just a guarantee to get past taunts, like you said. There's anything like Eviscerate plus SI7 agent or Blade Flurry, Eviscerate. There's a lot of permutations and combinations that you can use here. All right. Ooh, he's going to use his Pilot Shredder. Sprint. I mean,
Sprint's pretty good.
Sprint's okay, though.
Sprint gives you so many opportunities to draw Eviscerate.
Oh, you're right.
And Kolento's already used 1 Sprint and at least 1 Azure Drake, so he's probably cycled
I
through his
was
deck
thinking
a lot.
about like the SI7 agent. I forgot about the Eviscerate after talking about it for like an hour.
Oh, he's gonna Fireball his own
Wait,
Pilot
oh, he's
Shredder.
gonna need to get a taunt. He's gonna Fireball his own Shredder.
Oh,
He gets a Millhouse Mana Storm. All right. Wow,
Wow.
that's game. Right there. Didn't need sprint.
well, why
Right?
not? I
What's he
think
hesitating for?
maybe Kolento, he's thinking about whether he has an Eviscerate left in his deck, and he just wants to go for the BM Sprint Eviscerate. I don't know.
Aw.
But wow.
Well, that was kind of an anticlimactic end to the series. They were just hoping for Kolento to get any bits of damage, but looks like he is going to advance to the round of 4 and win $5,000.
5,000
Stancifka
euros.
goes home in a round of 8, but it's no shame in losing to Kolento.
Yeah, he of course brings home 3,000 euros back home, back to his.
Oh,
there-
man.
there's the bunnies.
The Bunny Girls coming over to touch Kolento, and of course Stancifka is trying to clean up.
Yeah.
Oh, he's putting his shoes back on. And the photographer is getting all in on that action.
yet another trait that Stancifka has in common with Life Coach. Life Coach.
Wow, that was... Monk, hold on. That was the greatest 15 seconds of Hearthstone broadcast history, let me tell you. They caught Kolento just standing there, flapping his jacket, waiting for Stancifka to get up because he was changing his shoes while the Chinese photographer was documenting the entire action.
Yeah, this is going to be all over the great Chinese websites in the morning.
There's no follow-up. The we actually should end the stream right here because there's no way we can follow that up.
Yeah. But of course, we should talk about the games that just went on, especially that final game, Anixia. Anixia almost won the game, and if Kolento didn't have those saps, yet again, it's just like yesterday when Tiddler needed exactly 2 saps to stay in the game and then win the game. Kolento needed exactly those 2 saps to also not die on board.
He used 1 sap. Instead, he just decided to go a little bit more aggressive and have the draw opportunity with the Fauno. So I agree with him there. It's pretty hard to justify like using both saps if you don't have enough draws to win the game. So it's like, do you want to survive or do you want to win? And I like that Kolento went for that. Not to mention that Stancifka was 1 damage off if he had the Fireball, plus like a Frostbolt. It would have definitely been able to end the game there and stay in the series. Let's take a recap over of what happened, starting with game number 1. We had Kolento getting that Innervate and shutting down the Hunter, and that's really painful. Stancifka definitely wanted to win this first game here.
Yeah, I think it all came down, of course, to that Innervate, but also to the fact that there's so many situational cards in Stancifka's hand. 2 Iron Beak Owls, 2 Explosive Traps, not really what you want. Stancifka actually could have played around the combo on that turn, but I'm not sure if you play around Innervate combo in that situation.
All right, going into game 3, this was also a big swing moment where he got the easy trade straight into the Dread Infernal. Another really cool moment in deck being put on display here. Yeah, the Kolento Warlock deck.
It just really displays the power of this deck. Stancifka had pretty much the ideal opening with Bald Growth into Yeti into Sludge Belcher. Yet still, he was wrecked.
Of course, we were saying that facetiously that it's Kolento's deck. This was a deck that Strifecode was actually hit number 1 earlier today, just a few hours ago, in fact, on stream, I believe, right?
Yeah, on stream.
Yeah.
Dread Infernal, the new.
So yeah, you guys should definitely watch out for that Strifecode guy. He's up and comer. You might see him in some tournaments in the future.
Of course.
He's on that. What's that team called? Cloud9?
I'm not sure if it's Cloud 8 or 7 or.
Oh man. Going into game number 3, Stancifka barely stayed alive because Kolento almost won this game, despite some people pegging the matchup as bad as like 80-20 or like, it depends on how you tech it. But these Hunter deck games versus the Oil Rogue can be so hard just because of how much the Rogue usually trades early on. But we were seeing like turn 5, Kolento only took like 4 or 5 points of damage. So Stancifka had a lot of ground to make up, using a pretty cool out-of-the-box maneuver of the Time Rewinder and the Wolf Rider. Stancifka definitely got a jolt of energy there, but it wasn't enough to take game 4 to game 5? Game 4.
Yeah. No, that was game 3. In game 4, this was a huge top deck. Stancifka just drew so horribly in the beginning with 2 Kirin Mages, no secrets, pretty much no early curve.
We're just catching like every single power move from Kolento. He's like a board clear or like going for like the game-winning draws and whatnot. And it just feels pretty brutal if you're on Stancifka's side, just watching this guy get pummeled nonstop.
I think it's also possible that Stancifka, he doesn't play as much Hearthstone as a lot of other players, so he might actually have been reading what Anixia does.
It's a pretty interesting observation. Stancifka still splits his time between Magic and Hearthstone, very much like Brian Kilbert. That could have been a really cool play too. That was like the Frostwolf Grunt, or what else could it have been for Annoyatron? That would have been like the clutchest thing ever. Of course, we know that there's a sap, but that would have been super duper clutch. Or maybe what if he got like a Vitality Totem and healed?
Yeah, well, we're actually going to the interview right away, so please enjoy that with Kolento.
好的，那这样的话，我坐在旁边的就是 C9 战队的 Kolento 啊，刚刚也是非常非常精彩的一个比赛啊，最终 Kolento 是3-1获得了比赛胜利。他的对手 Stancifka 呢，在以前的比赛还有预选赛中呢，都是使用慢速套牌，但这一次使用了出乎意料的 T7 列啊，对此 Kolento 是不是有点感到惊讶呢？
Okay, so congratulations again. Well, we know during the first round, Stancifka tends to play a bit slower decks, like more controllable decks. But this time he chose a hunter, a face hunter apparently. What do you think about that?
Good choice. Against my lineup, it should have worked good. I got lucky with Druid, I guess. And then it was good enough to take only 1 round for me against Hunter.
其实 K 神是觉得对方有点针对他，因为一个 T7的这个打脸猎人其实是非常针对他自己准备的3套卡组的。
是的。
那么在小德的这一轮当中呢 ，K 神觉得自己非常的幸运，是因为直接是抽到了一个激活嘛，有点声控的意思。
好，那这样的话，刚刚有一局啊，也算是上世纪大战了，在双方有来有回 ，K 神手上只有这个法术的情况下，对方用这个不稳定传送门出了一个非常令人惊讶的一个生物啊，差一点点就反败为胜了。这个对此，这个 K 神当时的抉择非常非常的冷静，想问一下 K 神当时是怎么想到的？
Okay, so last game was really close and very exciting because we know everything could come out of that unstable portal, and he got Onyxia. So we thought like he almost like turned around the table. What do you think about that?
I just needed my sprints to finish the game. Onyxia didn't have that much of an impact since it was just enough to simply sub her, and I was not even dead to fireball. So it was like a normal minion. I was dead in 2 turns anyway, and I wouldn't die in 1, even with Onyxia on the board.
是，就是 K 神觉得还是要冷静应对吧，就是需要自己出色的这个经验和这个，就是其实当时还是很淡定的，应该算了一下伤害，是说其实在那一回合中怎么样都是死不掉的。
就是对方只有一个火球的情况下是杀不了的。好，那还有最后一个问题，就是 K 神已经是4强的第1位选手了，他觉得在上半区里面，3之萨满和 Introvy 之间哪个人会出现呢？
Okay, so you are the first one to advance to the semifinal. Who do you think would be better? I mean, Entropy or Sleepy Shaman? Like, who do you think gonna win the game?
Not sure. I can remember that Sleepy Shaman played well yesterday.
Right.
So probably he has slight advantage.
也不是很确定啊，可能他觉得夏满昨天还是打得非常不错的，所以很有希望啊。
好，那这样的话，我们也感谢 Kolento 接受我们的采访。马上要进行的是上半区的第2场比赛，也是第2个4强名额，到底是贪睡之萨满还是 Introvy 会获得胜利呢？我们一会儿回来。
Thanks again.